going to invite us to imagine ourselves as one of those pesky folks who have needs and are desperate. One of the many who have the audacity to bug Jesus during his quiet time and ask for help. Who have the gall to throw their need right at his feet without so much as an invitation. None of them were invited to this deserted place. They just showed up. And not even late, like good guests. They arrived early. Early to the party. This is bad form. What are they thinking? Don't they know? So I invite you to imagine yourself as one of them. Pesky, audacious, full of gall, a bad guest, uninvited, but with needs. Because I would imagine if you're human like you have them. It's a fun fact. I'm really bad at asking for help. This is less of a fun fact and more of just a thing I actually need help with. Which brings us to that fun cycle. When you need help, but you're bad at asking for help, it means you need help asking for help. Because you're not good at asking for help, you're stuck in a cycle of trying to figure it out on your own and trying to self-heal. I'm not great at this asking for help thing. And maybe some of you can relate, because I just imagine that for most people, their plates are full. They have a ton to do. They're rushing around with their own needs, their own problems, their own worries, their own things they have to fix. I'd hate to bother them with mine. I'd hate to add more to their plate. I worry that my needs are a burden to others. And I wonder, by chance, if anybody else here feels that same way. That sometimes your needs are a burden, and love wouldn't have time for them. That we can't or shouldn't ask for what we need, because, well, that just adds to the needs of the world, and the world doesn't need that. Or maybe you hate asking for what you need because you're afraid that it won't be given to you. Someone will reject you, or even more scary, they will give you what you need, and then you have to accept it. Very scary. And so I look at these crowds who meet Jesus at the shoreline, who have come ahead, not once, actually twice in today's reading, and I see them not as pesky or annoying or clueless, but I see them as brave and quite bold. They are brave to believe that they are not inconveniencing love, and if they are, they don't care. They are brave enough to go out and to meet love ahead of where it is, to fall down and say, I am broken and I am sick. My heart hurts. I do not know what to do. I am messed up. I've got demons and fears and pain. How bold a move to make, to come with all of that. I wish I could say that if I saw love coming, or going down I-5 or Highway 26 or down the Willamette paddling, I would be so bold as to rush ahead and meet love at the shore and lay my needs at his or her or their feet. That's the Holy Spirit. And I wish I could be so bold as to say, please help me, because I don't actually have it figured out. Because I am broken too, and I am hurt, and I'm wounded, and I am scarred. And here's all my messiness and my brokenness, and it's ugly, and here it is. I've carried it here to give to you, to show you, and I need you. But I don't think I'm that gutsy yet. I'm not so sure I would think that love would see me, hand me a number and say, come back in a few hours or a few months. I can't see you now because I am too busy with all these other people. I'm too worried that either what I brought along is too much for love, or it's just too little. And I'd be turned away, or more likely I would turn away myself. But Mark tells us a different story, doesn't he? In Mark's to the point sort of way, we hear that upon arriving to the shoreline, the first time for some downtime, and seeing the crowds come, Jesus has compassion immediately. He feels with them, not for them, with them. That's compassion. And he begins to teach them right away. There is no hesitation. He just starts. There is no, please take a number and wait, like at the DMV. There is no come back in an hour. There is no rebuke. There is no turning anyone away. He just begins. He begins to teach, and he begins to heal. And then after some miracles happen, which are left out of today's reading, You'll get them next week. Jesus walks on water and does other good things. But upon a second boat trip to another quiet place, Jesus is always on boats, the crowds come again. And upon seeing the crowds come again to the shoreline, he begins to heal. People bring him their sick. They lay them in the streets, in villages. They bring them on mats. And what Mark tells us in one sentence is that he heals them all. All who touch are healed. There is no hesitation, no handing of a number, no saying come back later, no asking of credentials. We just hear all are healed. Now remember how I said that what Mark doesn't say is sometimes as important as what he does. There are also no details about what sorts of healing needs to take place. No details about the sorts of sicknesses, kinds of demons or diseases that folks come to for help. Not in this story. All we hear is that they come, and all are healed. This leads me to assume that there are none of these words either. I assume that Jesus did not say your need is not great enough for me, or it is too great. I assume that Jesus did not say your sickness is not sick enough for me to deal with, or your sickness is too sick for my tastes. Your disease is not far enough along for me to care about, nor does he say it's too far along and I can't help you. None of that exists here. You just come, and I'll say it again, all who touch him are healed. All of them. Remember, I invited you to imagine yourself as those pesky, and now may we say bold and brave, members of the many who run to Jesus, who run to love without an invitation, it seems, with their needs and their hopes and their desperation. And I wonder this, I wonder what it might take for us, for you and for me, to do what they did, to run to where love is going and to take a chance on the good news. To take a chance that the good news is actually meant for you too. All of it. What might it take to believe that we are actually never inconveniencing love with our needs or fears or pains? What would it take to trust love that much? To trust that love is big enough for all of it, for all of us. Now, we could say that the many who ran to Jesus were actually not trusting of him. They were just desperate. Sure. If you've ever been in pain, you've ever been fighting demons, and you've done it for far too long, you know you'll do anything. You will try anything. You will fight for the smallest chance to heal, to feel better, to be free. So you can call it desperation, or you can call it surrender. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe the great prophets and mystics call us to surrender to love. So I'll ask again, what would it take to surrender to love and to run to the place it was headed, to trust that it's big enough and expansive enough for every single messy and beautiful piece of you? Okay, one other thing. I've told you I'm not very concise, so we'll just hang with me. Jesus is a pretty witty guy, apparently. Pretty quick. Pretty observant. Doesn't seem to me that he has a pretty good sense of what's going to happen in the future. So it doesn't make much sense to me that he would have already figured out that the crowds of people with their needs would find him no matter where he went. I have a hard time imagining that he didn't notice crowds running to the places he was going. Apparently there were large crowds waiting for him at the shoreline. If he didn't want to see all of those people, I think he would have turned the boat around or stayed on the sea a little bit longer. I mean, Jesus could walk on water. I think he was fine. And he was with a bunch of fishermen, so I think they could eat. But he didn't do that. He didn't turn away. He didn't linger on the water. He met them too. I like to believe he expected them. And so maybe it isn't so much that the crowds went ahead of love, but maybe love, Jesus, knew exactly where to meet them, and did. Maybe love was actually already waiting and calling to them. I was once told by some Episcopalian monks, yes, they do exist, that our prayers to God, to Jesus, are not us initiating a conversation, but they are actually a response to God, to Jesus, to love, who has been calling out to us all along, waiting for us to respond, to come. I like to think that the crowds of people running towards love were, in fact, always invited to this party, to that deserted place, and they showed up right on time, whether they knew it or not. And this gives me hope that if I ever find the courage and the boldness, that when I do run to divine love with my own pain and my needs and my hopes and my fears and my worries, that I'll be inconveniencing divine love with all of my messy stuff, that she'll walk off that boat and she'll say, I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you. I've been calling your name. So give me what you got. I'm here. I'm with you. And you will not be overcome. Part of our lectionary today actually sometimes includes Psalm 23. And I actually like to end with that. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul and guides me along right pathways for his name's sake. And though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.